Welcome back to The Child Who Heard the Dark. This is part 3, and things are getting darker. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, be sure to check them out. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Now, let's dive into the next chapter. The whispers at night had become stronger. Malvaris' voice was no longer just an echo. It felt like a real presence. But what disturbed me the most was that I was no longer alone. The fingerprints on my window, the footsteps echoing in the darkness. The darkness was growing, and with it, others were coming. By morning, I met with Elias and Sister Clara. Their faces were filled with concern. Silently, Elias spread out a map in the middle of the room, showing the hidden passage beneath the church. Behind this passage, Elias said, there is a secret order within the church. They are priests who have been fighting the darkness for centuries. They call themselves Lux Ordinis. Olivia whispered in shock. So there's another order here? Are they on our side? Callahan frowned. Yes, but it's hard to say they are fully our allies. They only take orders from the highest authority, and their greatest mission is to seal the gate. I swallowed hard. And what about me? I'm part of this gate, too. Callahan lowered his head. We won't know until we meet them. That day, under Elias' guidance, we began searching for the passage beneath the church. As we moved through the labyrinth-like corridors, I started to feel something. We weren't alone. Just then, figures emerged from the shadows of the walls. They wore long black robes, their faces hidden beneath hoods. One of them stepped forward, speaking in a deep voice. Daniel, you have finally come. Elias bowed slightly. We need to speak with the leader of Lux Ordinis. The hooded man nodded and led us further down. A massive stone door opened before us. As we stepped inside, we were met with a grand hall. In the center stood an elderly priest, his white beard and piercing gray eyes watching us in silence. Why have you disturbed us? He asked, his voice calm but commanding. Callahan stepped forward. You know that Malvaris is growing stronger. Daniel is the key to this war. We must protect him. The old priest locked eyes with me, we know. Just then, a deafening explosion echoed through the hall. The walls trembled. Shadows slithered inside, and among them were Malvaris followers. They were not just shadows this time. They were real. Their faces were blurred in the darkness, their eyes empty voids. One of them spoke. You can no longer hide. The gate will open. Daniel will come with us. In an instant, chaos erupted. The priests of Lux Ordinis fought back with prayers. Elias threw holy water. Nick and Olivia stayed close to me. But the darkness was consuming everything. Then I saw something. Malvaris wasn't alone. He had others with him, figures that looked human, but weren't. They wore silver masks, their robes blending into the darkness. They were his disciples. Their leader stepped forward. Daniel, he said. Join us, my breath caught. No, but he only smiled. You were chosen long ago, whether you accept it or not. Elias turned to me. Don't make eye contact. But it was too late. A voice echoed in my mind. This is only the beginning. And then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in a cavern made of black stone. Hundreds of candles flickered around me. Malvaris' disciples surrounded me, placing me at the center of a ritual circle. Directly ahead of me stood a hooded figure, his face completely hidden. He raised his hand and spoke in a fragile yet chilling voice. The gate will open, and you, Daniel, will be our guide." A heavy force pressed against me. My arms and legs were paralyzed. It felt like my soul was being pulled from my body. The prayers in my mind were fading. Then I heard a voice. "Daniel, fight. We're here." A woman's voice. The prayers of Lux Ordinis filled the cavern. I could hear Nick and Olivia shouting. Suddenly, I felt the darkness inside me weaken. The chains that bound me shattered, and I collapsed to the ground. I opened my eyes and saw Malvaris' leader standing before me. He was smiling. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. "Soon everything will end." I watched as he slowly retreated into the shadows. The darkness swallowed him whole, but his final words echoed in my mind. Then I was back in Lux Ordinis' hall. Elias and Sister Clara were standing over me. Nick and Olivia stared at me in shock. "What happened?" I whispered. Elias took a deep breath. "They retreated, but they left something behind." Sister Clara held up a black book, its cover marked with ancient Latin inscriptions. She read the title aloud. Liber Tenebris, the Book of Darkness. And in that moment I understood. Lux Ordinis could protect us, but if we truly wanted to win this war, we had to learn Malvaris' secrets. And to do that, I had to open that book. When I first saw that black book, I felt an unsettling presence within me. Liber Tenebris, the dark book. Elias held it carefully, while Sister Clara immediately clutched her cross. Nick and Olivia remained silent, watching anxiously. We all knew that opening this book could begin an entirely new battle. Elias traced his fingers over the cover. "This book may reveal the true nature of Malvaris and his followers," he said. "But it could also be dangerous. If we read something incorrectly, we might end up strengthening them." Nick raised an eyebrow. "Do we have any other choice?" Olivia nodded. "We've come this far. There's no turning back now." Taking a deep breath, Elias opened the book. The pages were old, faded, yet somehow alive. The Latin words shimmered before our eyes, shifting as if they were aware of our presence. Sister Clara began whispering prayers under her breath, and at that moment the church walls trembled. Candles flickered. Shadows deepened. Something was awakening, ... "It says here," Elias murmured, "Malvaris is not just a demon. He is a gatekeeper. Those who summon him need his guidance to open the passage." Sister Clara shook her head. "That passage must never be opened. If the barrier between this world and the other is broken, not just Malvaris, but far worse things could come through." Nick flipped through the pages and pointed at a marking. "There's something here," he said. "A symbol." Olivia leaned in, studying it closely. "I've seen this before." Elias and Clara turned to her in surprise. "Where?" Olivia narrowed her eyes, trying to recall. Then, suddenly, she gasped. "In the old monastery in Savannah. It was carved into the walls." I didn't know what it meant back then, but now I do. "It's a sealing symbol." Elias's face lit up. "If that symbol can seal Malvaris, we might be able to stop him from opening the passage." But Sister Clara immediately protested. The seal might be incomplete. If it's not placed correctly, we could end up making Malvaris even stronger. We all exchanged uneasy glances. We had a choice to make. Would we take the risk and use the book's knowledge to stop Malvaris, or would we search for another way? And then the door creaked open. For a moment we held our breath. Lux Ordinis priests appeared at the entrance. Leading them was their elder, dressed in a long black robe. His face was calm, but his eyes held firm resolve. "Give us the book," the elder said. "It is too dangerous in your hands." Elias shook his head. "No, we need it." The priest stepped forward. "You don't understand what this book contains. It doesn't just call Malvaris, it calls his masters." A chill ran through me. "His masters?" I whispered. The priest nodded. "Malvaris is not alone. He is merely a servant. There are far greater beings behind him. If you misuse this book, you could bring them back into this world." And then, from the darkness, a whisper rose. "Too late." The church walls trembled again. Shadows shifted. And at that moment, Malvaris's followers appeared. Silver-masked figures in long robes glided into the room. One of them stepped forward. "This book belongs to us," a voice as cold as ice declared, "and we will take it." Elias raised his cross. Lux Ordinis priests began chanting their prayers, but something was different this time. The shadows, they were stronger. Sister Clara's eyes widened in fear. By opening the book, we awakened them. Nick drew his blade. Olivia stood beside me. "Daniel," she said, "what do we do now?" And in that moment, something within me shifted. I felt a power rise inside me. The whispers of Malvaris echoed in my mind, opening a door. But this time I was in control. I closed my eyes. The whispers were still there. "Join us." But I just smiled. No. When I opened my eyes, a strange symbol had formed on my hands. The sealing mark from the book. The elder of Lux Ordinis stared in shock. "How?" But there was no time to explain. I raised my hand and released the seal's power. At that moment, the church was filled with blinding white light. The shadows screamed. Malvaris's followers recoiled. Elias and Clara continued their prayers. Nick and Olivia stood frozen in awe. And then Malvaris's voice echoed once more. "This is not over, Daniel." But I knew. We had pushed them back. For now. When I opened my eyes, echoes of the white light still lingered around me. Something inside me had changed. I didn't know how I had used that seal, but somehow we had managed to push Malvaris's followers back. For now, Nick and Olivia stood beside me, breathing heavily. Elias's face was drenched in sweat. Sister Clara was still whispering prayers. The priests of Lux Ordinis were with us, but even their faces held traces of concern. The leader of Lux Ordinis spoke in a heavy tone. "What you did was no coincidence, Daniel. The fact that you could access the power of the seal, it's a sign." The weight of his words hit me like a stone in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "You are not just a target," the priest continued. "You may be the key to the passage." A cold shiver ran down my spine. Nick raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I don't like where this is going." Olivia nodded. "If Daniel is the key to the passage, that means Malvaris and his followers will never stop hunting him." Elias took a deep breath. "That's why we have to protect him." Sister Clara stepped forward. "But we've also noticed that they are getting stronger. The difference between last night and now is massive. It's as if something is feeding them power." The leader of Lux Ordinis nodded. "Malvaris is not alone. There is something greater that he serves." The words sent a chill through me. If Malvaris was just a servant, then who was his master? And then a sound echoed through the walls. A scream, but not a human one. More like a whisper rising from the depths of shadow itself. Elias gripped his cross tightly. "They're coming back." Nick unsheathed his blade. "Can we at least get like a couple of hours to breathe?" But it was too late. One by one, the church candles extinguished. Shadows shifted. And then they emerged. This time, Malvaris's followers were greater in number. They were stronger, and worse, they were no longer just shadows. They had taken form. One of their silver-masked leaders stepped forward. His voice was as cold as ice. "You have chosen the wrong path." Elias raised his cross. "We have chosen the right path. You don't belong in this world." But the leader only chuckled. "Then we will turn this world into hell for you." And at that moment, the attack began. The priests of Lux Ordinis began chanting their prayers. Elias hurled holy water. I felt something stirring inside me, an energy I hadn't tapped into before. I looked at my hands. The seal was glowing again. Olivia and Nick fought beside me, but the enemy was overwhelming. Shadows swirled around them, closing in. I shut my eyes, took a deep breath, and unleashed the power inside me. The white light exploded once more. The shadows screamed as they were driven back. Malvaris's followers disintegrated into nothingness, fading like smoke. But this wasn't a victory, because at that moment a voice echoed through the space. "Daniel, now the real game begins." And in that moment a new feeling replaced my fear. The war had only just begun. The battle isn't over. It's only just beginning. Malvaris' true power has yet to be revealed, and Daniel must face his destiny. In the final chapter, everything will be decided. Don't miss it.